My sister fabricated a story and informed my fiancé I was unfaithful just to claim him for herself. Nobody trusted me. 7 years afterward, I'm contentedly wed with children. Last week she intoxicatedly admitted, I fabricated everything. I simply desired him for myself. Now she's proceeding through divorce and my former partner is frantically messaging, please return. You are the passion of my existence. And all I can do is grin. Let me illustrate my circumstances 7 years ago. I, 28F at that time, 35F currently, was betrothed to the man I believed I'd share my life with. Let's name him Derek, 29M then, 36M now. We had been together for 4 years, cohabitated for 2, and had been engaged for nearly a year. Our wedding was scheduled 6 months ahead, and I was dwelling in what I genuinely considered my happy conclusion. Derek embodied everything I thought I desired. Attractive, accomplished in his profession as an architect, charismatic, and we shared identical dreams regarding family and our future. Everyone cherished him, my parents, our companions, and particularly my younger sister Emma, 24F then, 31F now. Emma and I had consistently been close throughout childhood despite the 4-year difference. She was my maid of honor, involved in all wedding arrangements, dress shopping, venue visits, everything. She'd been unattached for approximately a year following a complicated separation and was temporarily residing in our guest bedroom while she recovered financially. Reflecting now, I should have recognized the warning signals, but hindsight offers perfect clarity, correct? I should mention that Emma had consistently been considered the more attractive sibling according to everyone during our upbringing. She was the blonde, blue-eyed cheerleader, while I was the brunette bookworm with spectacles. She'd consistently attracted attention effortlessly, while I was more reserved. By adulthood, I'd become comfortable in my identity, discover my style, and honestly never experienced jealousy toward her because we were distinct individuals with different strengths. But Emma had consistently measured her value by the attention she received, especially from men. It began with minor incidents. I'd return from work to discover them laughing together in the kitchen. Emma would casually reference inside jokes they developed during my absence. She'd prepare his preferred meals, claiming she wanted to assist since I was occupied with wedding arrangements and my demanding position as a hospital administrator. I wasn't concerned. I completely trusted Derek, and Emma was my sister, the person I'd shared bunk beds with, whom I taught bicycle riding, who wept on my shoulder through her initial heartbreak. You don't suspect your own sibling. You don't imagine she'd devastate your existence. It was approximately 4 months before the wedding when everything collapsed. I'd been working extended hours on a significant hospital project. One particular Friday, I arrived home early, exhausted, but anticipating the weekend with Derek. Instead, I entered our apartment to find Emma tearfully telling Derek something that made him appear as if he'd been physically struck. They both froze when they noticed me. The expression on Derek's face, I'll never forget it. Confusion, anger, and something worse, disgust. Is it accurate? He demanded, his voice breaking. I had no idea what he was referencing. Emma revealed everything to me. He continued, his voice rising, about you and that physician from your department. How long have you been intimate with him? Our entire relationship? Is that why you've been working late these recent months? I was stunned. The accusation was so absurd, so completely invented that momentarily, I thought it was some kind of twisted joke. There was no affair. There wasn't even a male doctor in my department. I worked with Dr. Lillian Parker, a 58-year-old woman who had been my mentor since I started at the hospital. What are you discussing? I asked, genuinely perplexed. There's nobody else, Derek. I've never been unfaithful to you. I looked at Emma, expecting her to clarify whatever misunderstanding had transpired. Instead, she avoided my gaze, tears streaming down her face. I observed them. Derek, she said softly, in her office last week when I brought her lunch. She didn't know I was present. And then the text messages I discovered on her phone when she left it unlocked. I didn't want to inform you, but you deserve to know the truth. I was speechless. Every word was fabricated. I hadn't seen Emma in weeks, let alone had her bring me lunch. And my phone? I never left it unlocked. Hospital policy, due to patient confidentiality. Show me these messages. I demanded, my voice quivering. I captured screenshots and erased them from your phone, Emma said, her voice trembling with fake remorse. I was attempting to protect you initially, but then I realized Derek deserved better. I looked at Derek expecting him to perceive through this ridiculous narrative. We had been together for 4 years. He knew me, or at least I thought he did. Derek, she's lying. I don't understand why, but none of this is factual. Call Dr. Parker immediately. She'll confirm I've been working on the new patient intake system with her. There's no male doctor. There's no affair. But Derek wasn't listening. He was already packing a bag. I need some time to contemplate, he said, not meeting my eyes. Contemplate what? I cried. About complete falsehoods from someone who has no evidence, because none exists. Emma placed her hand on Derek's arm. It's acceptable to be angry, she said soothingly. You have every right to be upset. I watched my sister comfort my fiancé over an affair that never occurred, and I felt like I was losing my sanity. Leave, I told Emma, my voice deadly calm. Get your belongings and exit our apartment. Don't blame Emma for this, Derek snapped. She's merely the messenger. If you want to direct anger at someone, direct it at yourself. And that's when I knew I'd already lost. Emma had planted her seeds carefully, nurturing them for months. Whatever she'd been telling him behind my back had rooted so deeply that he couldn't recognize the truth before him. By the following morning, Derek had relocated. Within a week, the wedding was officially canceled. I was left alone in our apartment, surrounded by bridal magazines and vendor contracts, trying to comprehend how my life had imploded so thoroughly. The worst aspect wasn't losing Derek. The worst part was what followed. Emma moved out claiming she couldn't be around me after what I'd done. 2 weeks later, I learned from a mutual friend that she and Derek had been seen together, comforting each other, they called it. I was devastated, but not surprised. The pieces were finally aligning. When I attempted to explain to our parents what had transpired, they were sympathetic but doubtful. Perhaps there was a misunderstanding, my mother suggested gently. Emma wouldn't fabricate something so serious. Even my closest friends weren't fully convinced. It just seems so unlike Emma, my best friend just said. She's always admired you. That was the most painful revelation, realizing that nobody truly believed me. Emma had always been the emotional, dramatic sister. I was the practical, sometimes stoic one. She cried. I problem-solved. And in this situation, her tears were more convincing than my denials. 3 months after my canceled wedding, Emma and Derek announced they were dating. They had the audacity to claim it just happened, and they never intended to hurt anyone. My parents were uncomfortable, but accepted it. The heart desires what it desires, my father said with a shrug. I was the villain in their narrative, the cheating ex-fiancé whose sister and ex found solace in each other after my betrayal. I stopped attending family events when they were present. I couldn't bear to observe Emma play the role of the supportive sister who just happened to fall in love with my ex. I couldn't stomach Derek's guilty glances, as if I was the one who should be requesting forgiveness. I was alone, betrayed by the 2 people I trusted most, and branded a liar and a cheater. That was my lowest point. The night after learning about Emma and Derek's relationship, I sat in my empty apartment and made a decision. I would not let them define my remaining life. I sold the apartment and everything in it. I transferred to a hospital in Chicago, 8 hours away from my hometown of Indianapolis. I reduced contact with everyone except my parents, minimal, and 2 close friends who had supported me. The first year was challenging. I attended therapy twice weekly, attempting to process the betrayal and rebuild my self-worth. I immersed myself in my new position, earning a promotion within 10 months. I established new friendships, joined a hiking club, and gradually created a life completely unrelated to my past. I focused on becoming someone stronger than the woman who had been so completely deceived by the people she loved. 2 years after relocating to Chicago, I met Michael at a hospital fundraiser. He was a pediatric surgeon with kind eyes and a quiet confidence that attracted me despite my reluctance to date again. Our relationship progressed gradually. My trust issues weren't something I could simply disregard, but Michael was patient, consistent, and honest in a way that gradually helped me heal. After a year of dating, I finally shared the complete story about Derek and Emma. I anticipated disbelief or doubt. I'd become accustomed to not being believed. Instead, Michael held my hand and said, "They didn't deserve you, and they certainly didn't break you." That night, I wept for the first time since everything had occurred, not from sadness, but from the relief of being truly seen and believed. We married 2 years later in a small ceremony with only our closest friends and family. Emma and Derek weren't invited despite my mother's pleas for reconciliation. "She remains your sister," she'd insisted. "No," I replied. "She abandoned that role long ago." By then, Emma and Derek were engaged themselves. They had a large wedding I'd once planned in the identical venue with many of the same guests. My parents attended. I did not. Michael and I constructed a beautiful life together. I was promoted to director of hospital administration. He became chief of pediatric surgery. We purchased a gorgeous Victorian house and renovated it together. 3 years into our marriage, our daughter Lily was born, followed by our son James 2 years later. My life became filled with love, success, and genuine happiness, everything Emma had attempted to steal from me. The irony wasn't lost on me that in trying to take my life, she forced me to build a better one. I maintained minimal contact with my family over the years, holiday calls, occasional visits when Emma and Derek weren't around. I never saw or spoke to either of them directly. My parents would occasionally mention them, their wedding, their house, their seemingly perfect life. I would listen politely and change the subject. I wasn't bitter anymore. I was too occupied being happy. Last month marked 7 years since the day my engagement to Derek ended. 7 years of building a new life, healing old wounds, and finding authentic happiness. My parents were celebrating their 40th anniversary and insisted on having both their daughters present. After much discussion with Michael, I agreed to attend the small family dinner at their home. It would be the first time I'd be in the same room as Emma and Derek since everything had happened. "We don't have to go," Michael assured me. "Your parents will understand." "No," I said. "I'm not avoiding them anymore. They don't possess that power over me." We arranged for my aunt to watch the children and drove the 8 hours back to Indianapolis. I felt strangely calm. 7 years is extensive. I wasn't the same person who had been so utterly destroyed by their betrayal. The dinner was as awkward as anticipated. Emma appeared older than her 31 years, her face tight with what I recognized as unhappiness. Derek barely made eye contact with me, focusing intently on his food. Michael was a steady presence beside me, his hand occasionally squeezing mine under the table. We endured dinner with forced politeness. My mother was visibly relieved that there were no confrontations. As the evening progressed, my father opened a bottle of expensive champagne for a toast. 1 glass became 2, then 3, and as the night advanced, Emma consumed far more than anyone else. It was nearly midnight when it happened. My parents had retired. Michael was in deep conversation with Derek about some architectural feature of my parents' house, deliberately creating a buffer between us. I was in the kitchen putting away the last of the dessert plates when Emma stumbled in, clearly intoxicated. She leaned against the counter, watching me silently for an extended moment. "You've done well for yourself," she finally said, her words slightly slurred. "Perfect husband, perfect career, perfect children, still living your perfect little life." I didn't respond, continuing to load the dishwasher. "That was supposed to be me," she continued, her voice adopting a bitter edge. "I was supposed to have the perfect life. Not you. Never you." I turned to face her, maintaining a neutral expression. "Emma, you're intoxicated. Go to bed." She laughed, a hollow sound that echoed in the quiet kitchen. "You know what's amusing? He never loved me the way he loved you. Not once in 7 years." Something in her tone made me pause. She wasn't seeking a confrontation. She looked defeated. I lied about everything, she whispered, tears suddenly streaming down her face. There was no affair, no doctor, no text messages. I just wanted him for myself. Though I'd known the truth all along, hearing her admit it sent a shock through my system. For 7 years, I'd lived with being the only one who knew what really occurred. Why are you telling me this now? I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. Because it didn't succeed, she said, sliding down to sit on the kitchen floor, her back against the cabinets. We're getting divorced. Found him with his 24-year-old intern last month. Poetic, isn't it? She laughed bitterly through her tears. I stood frozen, absorbing this information. Part of me wanted to scream at her, to demand back the years I'd spent rebuilding my life because of her lies. But looking at her, drunk, crying on our parents' kitchen floor, her makeup smeared, I felt something unexpected. Pity. You know what the worst part is? She continued, not waiting for my response. I knew from the beginning that he wasn't worth it. I was always so jealous of you. You had everything organized, the career, the perfect relationship. I wanted to prove I could take it all away, that I was better than you. And was it worth it? I asked quietly. She looked up at me, her eyes red-rimmed and hollow. 7 wasted years. A marriage built on falsehoods. No career, because he wanted me to focus on us. No children, because he wasn't ready. And now he's leaving me for someone younger. So no, it wasn't worth it. I should have felt vindication, satisfaction, the sweet taste of revenge served cold. Instead, I felt a profound sadness for the relationship we might have had as sisters. I'm sorry, Emma, I said, meaning it. Not for you, but for both of us. For what we lost. She stared at me in confusion, clearly expecting anger or gloating. How can you be so composed? I destroyed your life. I shook my head. No, you didn't. You changed its direction. There's a difference. I helped her to her feet and guided her to the guest room. As I turned to leave, she grabbed my wrist. I am sorry, she whispered. I know it doesn't change anything, but I am. I nodded once and left her there. When I returned to the living room, Michael was alone, Derek having gone outside for a phone call. My husband looked at me with concern. Everything okay? I saw Emma follow you into the kitchen. I sat beside him, leaning into his solid warmth. She confessed about everything. The lies, the manipulation, all of it. Michael's arm tightened around me. How do you feel? I considered it for a moment. Free, I finally said, like the last piece of a puzzle falling into place. The next morning was painfully awkward. Emma wouldn't meet my eyes across the breakfast table. Derek was conspicuously absent, having left early for work, despite it being Sunday. As Michael and I were packing our vehicle to return to Chicago, Derek's sleek black BMW pulled into the driveway. He approached hesitantly, looking like he hadn't slept. Can we talk? He asked, his eyes pleading. Just for a minute. Michael looked at me questioningly. I nodded, and he squeezed my hand before getting into the driver's seat to provide privacy. Derek and I walked to the end of the driveway, far enough from the house and car for privacy. Emma told me she confessed to you last night, he began, running a hand through his hair. The gesture was so familiar it gave me an odd sense of déjà vu about the lies. I nodded, saying nothing. I don't expect you to trust me, but I need to say it anyway. I had no idea, he insisted. I truly believed I was such a fool. Yes, you were. I agreed calmly. But so was I for trusting both of you. He flinched at that, but continued. When she informed me about the supposed affair, I was devastated. I couldn't think rationally. And then she was there, being so supportive, so understanding. Spare me the details, I interrupted. It doesn't matter anymore. He stared at me for an extended moment. You look happy, he said finally. Are you happy? I thought about Michael, about our children, about the life we built together. Yes, I answered honestly. I am. I made the greatest mistake of my life letting you go, he said, his voice breaking. Believing her over you. These past 7 years have been. He trailed off, swallowing hard. I never stopped loving you. Not really. Please, is there any possibility? No. I cut him off firmly. There isn't. We could try again, he pressed desperately. I'll do anything. You're the love of my life. You always have been. 7 years ago, those words would have meant everything to me. Now they meant nothing. I looked back at our car where Michael waited patiently, my husband, my partner, the father of my children, the man who had never doubted me, never betrayed me. I turned back to Derek and smiled, not a smile of malice or triumph, but one of genuine peace. Goodbye, Derek, I said simply, walking away. As we drove out of Indianapolis, Michael glanced over at me. You okay? I watched my childhood home fade in the rearview mirror and felt the last remnants of my old life fall away. I'm perfect, I replied, meaning it. It's been 3 months since the confession. Emma and Derek's divorce was finalized last week. He moved in with his intern almost immediately, according to my mother. Emma has started therapy and is seeking employment for the first time in years. Derek still calls occasionally. I never answer. My parents are attempting to rebuild their relationship with me, finally understanding the magnitude of what occurred. It's a gradual process, but we're making progress. As for me, I recently received an offer to become the youngest CEO in our hospital network's history. Michael and I are planning a European trip next summer with the children. Our life continues to flourish. Sometimes I think about how differently things might have unfolded if Emma had never told that lie, if Derek had believed in me, if I had remained in that life. But then I observe my husband preparing dinner while our children giggle at his silly songs. I consider my fulfilling career and the home we've established together, and I realize that sometimes the worst betrayal can inadvertently guide you to your best life. The revenge isn't in Emma's failed marriage or Derek's regret. It's in my happiness, a happiness they can see but can never touch. And all I can do is smile. Edit. Wow, this exploded overnight. Thank you all for the kind comments and support. To address a few common questions. Yes, my parents know the complete truth now. They've apologized profusely for not believing me. No, I don't plan to have any relationship with Emma beyond basic family functions. Some betrayals can be forgiven, but not forgotten. I've blocked Derek's number since posting this. You're all correct. I don't need that energy in my life. And to the person who asked if this is the plot of a Hallmark movie, LOL. No, just my real life, which sometimes feels like fiction even to me. Thanks again, Reddit. Sharing this narrative has been surprisingly therapeutic.